had one stab wound to the left side of her chest and one to the right side of her neck. Welcome back to my channel, Gems, and welcome to another murder mystery video. In today's video, I'll be taking us back to the year 2017 in August. This murder-suicide took place in the Berbice area, so let's get right into that story. Now, to start today's video, we have to actually go back in time to when things were happier, to a happier time between the couple, before things got way out of control. The murder victim, Rhonda Blair, was a teacher in happier times who always wanted the best for her students. Students would say that she would normally take food to sell at the school, and she would always tell them that one day she wanted to own her very own business. Now, the murder suspect, Rudolph Blair, he started out his career, his work life, working at sea. The two would later meet and settle down and got married, and at the time of this incident they had two children, a 21-year-old and an 8-year-old, and they also had at that time a grandchild. Mrs. Blair was 42 at the time of her death, and Mr. Blair was 46 years old. Relatives told local news reporters and media houses that Rhonda and her husband fell in love when they were teenagers, so they would have been together for quite some time. Their union was one that started out in the earlies, as we would like to say here in Guyana. Many said that before things got sour, you could find the two of them working together on their businesses, and they were always around each other. The relatives of the deceased murder suspect said that he was always helpful to them and that his wife Rhonda always showed a good face to them. As business began to boom, the couple would open one of the largest supermarkets that New Amsterdam would ever see, and it was estimated that it cost around $83 million to invest into that supermarket, and then they would later invest in another supermarket in the Rossignol area in Berbice. Now, you know, sometimes in life things don't always go as we would plan, and the couple started to experience some business turmoil in February of 2014. Now, I think the supermarket would have been opened in 2013. But fast forward to the year 2014, in February, things started to go downhill for the business. Sometime after they would have opened these businesses, things started to spiral and the businesses started to go downhill. And it's even said, I read in one newspaper that they had to file for bankruptcy at some point because the businesses, I'm not sure for what reason, they weren't doing so well. Now, the family would go on to face difficulty after difficulty, and eventually they would have to close their Rossignol supermarket, and they also had to close the business that they had on the lower flat of their Cumberland home. This turn of events would cause Mr. Blair to start working taxi on the Kanji Road, and a rumor quickly spread that he once tried to commit suicide because of the bankruptcy that the business had to file for and because of the business going downhill and spiraling. But he quickly shut down that rumor, saying that he would never do such a thing and that he found solace in God and he was at peace with whatever he was going through. So, you know, sometimes in countryside people like to rub you when they know that you're going through something. So I'm guessing, and especially if you're doing something like bus work or working taxi, those guys on the park, they rub each other very hard. So I can only imagine what he probably would have went through, the torment, the tantalizing. They probably told him that they heard he tried to commit suicide, and you know, stuff like that for a man would trigger him. So he quickly shut down that rumor by telling them he would not do such a thing and that his fate was in God. A family friend would later go on to tell local news that it was because of their financial difficulties that the couple would often argue and would often fight with one another because they were going through financial difficulty. And that was causing all these arguments that they were having, and eventually it is what is alleged to have caused Blair to start drinking. After some time, while the two would have lived together for so long in their marital home or their matrimonial home, it is alleged that Blair became abusive to Rhonda, and she would leave her Cumberland home to go and live with a friend in Ithaca, West Coast Berbice. It was after this that relatives and friends would claim that Blair would often threaten to kill himself and Rhonda because he blamed her for whatever financial difficulties and financial hard times that they were going through, and he often felt that it was Rhonda's fault that, you know, these things were happening. Prior to the gruesome murder-suicide that took place, it is said that, I guess it was a day of the incident or probably earlier on, that Blair had drunk several bottles of stag beer. Bottles were discovered in the yard, quite a number of them. Now it's said that on Sunday, August 6th of that year, that Blair visited the home that he and Rhonda shared, I think, or I'm not sure if it's the home that he lived with her or the home that she was living at. One of their homes, I'm guessing it was some relation between the two of them. He visited that home and he discussed the financial difficulties that he and his wife were facing, or that he was facing with some friends that were at the home. It is alleged that he had told these same friends that he told his wife that she should sell their Pitt Street business so that they could ease their financial burdens. Now I think Pitt Street is in New Amsterdam, so I'm guessing that one of the businesses that they own, because I'm not so familiar, even though I've been there, I'm not so familiar with the street names and so on. So I'm thinking that Pitt Street is a part of New Amsterdam and they had a business there, so he suggested to Rhonda that they should sell one of those businesses, the one in Pitt Street, so that they could get money from that and it would ease their financial strain, and she allegedly refused to do such. And it was at this time that Blair, who was a licensed firearm holder, pulled out his gun and showed it to his friends and said to them that he was ready to kill himself and Rhonda, and he also said allegedly that he wanted to kick her down from the step that he was sitting on straight to the front of the house, or the front gate, I think it was. But eventually his friends would calm him down and tell him that that was not the way to go and that what he was saying didn't make sense. So eventually they cooled him down and he left wherever it is that he was that afternoon. It is alleged that on the Thursday prior to this incident, one of Blair's friends said that she would have bought a weedicide and she had it in her yard. Now Blair had probably seen this weedicide and she alleged that he took some of it and put it into a bottle, and then he closed the bottle and took it to the back of the yard. So that is one of the things that came out when they were doing investigations. It is alleged that on Thursday the 10th of August 2017, Rhonda Blair would visit New Amsterdam to purchase some items, and she later found herself at their Pitt Street business in New Amsterdam, where she would meet up with Blair.
It's art time, so SAR's construction services construct your homes, your fences, drains. They do tiling, ceiling work, and other types of construction. SAR Construction Service is located at 8 Beehive East Coast Demerara, and you can contact them on 645-8565. Tell them that the Guyanesegem sent you.
Once she met up with her husband, he requested of her that they go and buy some goods for the store, and she obliged, and they left in his car around 3:30 p.m. that afternoon, and it is suspected that they were later traveling to their Cumberland home. It's alleged that Mr. Blair had allegedly rented out the bottom flat of their Cumberland home to a woman, so somebody was using that as a business place. So when it's alleged that once he would have picked up Rhonda that afternoon, he stopped by the house as he would normally do to check in, I guess, on the woman. And she said normally he would just wind down the window halfway and then speak to her or whatever. But that day he just pulled down the window a little bit, and just enough for him to peer out through the window, and he told her that GRA was coming, that she should close up the shop and go home. Now I'm figuring, I'm not sure why he would have told her that, but if you're not familiar with GRA, that's the Revenue Authority, the Guyana Revenue Authority here. So I'm not sure, probably people were going around measuring scales or asking for shop license. We don't know if the person was operating with a shop license, hence the reason why he told her to close up the shop and leave. So I don't know, you make your own assumptions about that, but nonetheless he told her to close up the business and leave. However, the woman, after he pulled off, I'm figuring that she did not close up the shop, and at around 5 p.m. that afternoon, she was about to close up her business. She noticed the car coming around back, and she assumed that Mr. Blair and his wife were in the car. Police told the media that on that same August 10th, that Thursday, anywhere between 23 hours, that would be 11 o'clock in the night, and about a little after 5 after 12 the next day, that is believed that Blair would have stabbed Rhonda to death. So they're not certain as to the time that it actually happened, but it's believed that around that time Rhonda was stabbed to death. It was Rhonda's friend who she was staying at in Ithaca that raised an alarm that she was not home when she was supposed to be. It's alleged that when she spoke to local media, she called Rhonda between the hours of 2100 hours and 2300 hours, and she spoke to her, and Rhonda would have indicated that she was with her husband and that he had requested of her to go with him to get, I guess, goods for the store. So that is where she was. But after her friend saw that she was not coming home, or that she was not answering her calls after 11 o'clock, she became very worried. She would later make several calls to Rhonda's phone that went unanswered after 11 p.m. on August 10th. She became so worried that she immediately left her Ithaca home and she went straight to the couple's business, and she did not see Rhonda there. So she became even more alarmed at what was taking place, because I'm figuring that she thought it was not like her friend to not answer her phone after a certain amount of calls, or not to say where she was, or not to be where she was. So she became extremely alarmed, and so she started looking for Rhonda. While she was on her way and while she was searching for Rhonda, she picked up the couple's son and they headed to the couple's Cumberland property in search of Rhonda. When the son and this friend reached to the Pitt Street location, they began to call for both Rhonda and her husband. However, those calls went unanswered, so they left, and at about 23:30 hours, Rhonda's friend and her son made a official missing persons report at the Reliance police station. Now it was after they made this official missing persons report, they were escorted by 2 policemen back to the residence, because I guess for some reason they thought that something was amiss, and so they wanted to see inside of the property. Now it was while they were escorted back to the yard by the policemen that they discovered Rhonda's dead body lying in a pool of her own blood in front of the yard with 2 stab wounds. She had 1 stab wound to the left side of her chest and 1 to the right side of her neck. And this discovery was made about 5 minutes after 12, August the 11th. Autopsy reports would reveal that Rhonda died of shock and hemorrhage due to the fact that she received these 2 stab wounds. So you know, a stab wound to the chest, especially on the left side, that it is aiming for the heart, and then to the right is a major blood vessel. So she died of hemorrhage and shock. But here is where things began to get real. So Blair, who by this time was hiding in some bushes in a neighbor's yard, fired a single gunshot into the air, I'm figuring, or at the police and Rhonda's friend and his son. So that set off an alarm. Now Blair did this with the intention of stopping the police from pursuing or looking for him. So he fired a single gunshot at them. His relatives, Blair's relatives, believe that he may have taken a poisonous substance after the fact that he would have stopped Rhonda, he drank something poisonous. So that was the belief of his relatives. After people found out that it's probably Blair that would have been hiding in the bushes, an effort made by both the relatives and the police had started to in an effort to get Blair out of the bushes. So both the police and Blair's relatives were begging him to surrender and to put down the gun and to come out of the bushes. Even though relatives did this, Blair refused, and he said he was not coming out of the bushes. Even after relatives tried to, advance towards him in the bushes, he told them to stop, and he told them that he was okay and that they should not come. He's not coming out of the bushes. At one point during the standoff between Blair and the police, he called for his elderly, sickly sister, and she went close and she begged him. She told him to come out of the bushes, and she told him that the police were not going to hurt him, that he should surrender and just put down the gun, come out of the bushes, and let them deal with this. However, he refused. He even at one point started to shout for both of his children. He started calling their names and calling for other relatives around. It was after all of this that relatives and the police would hear 2 gunshots, and his voice, Blair's voice, began to sound very faint, as they would call for him, and eventually they heard no more answers from him. So it was by then that they presumed that he might have shot himself. Police would later advance towards where Blair was and discover his body lying there. He shot himself to his left chest, and he also shot himself to the left ear. Next to his body, the police would find his .32 Taurus revolver lying next to where he had fallen. However, it should be noted that it was not until 8:44 a.m. on the 11th of August that Blair's body was actually discovered. So he had a long standoff between himself and the police. He refused to come out of the bushes. He told them that he's not coming out, and I guess he made up his mind that he was going to kill himself and not surrender to the police, because I'm figuring at that time he would have realized, well, I just killed my wife and I'm not going to jail. So he decided it best to just shoot himself. By this time that all of this was happening, Guyanese, we don't run from danger, we run towards it. A large crowd of relatives, neighbors, and I guess curious people had gathered at the scene. So there were a lot of people that were there just watching on at what was happening at that time. The son who had gone with Rhonda's friend to look for his mother, he at that time, when all of this was taking place, he could not believe what was going on. Our relatives reported to local news people that even before his father's body was taken out of the yard, and I guess after his mother's body would have been taken out of the yard, he left because he was in so much shock and he could not understand what just had taken place. I can only imagine what a young man would have been feeling to know, okay, you discovered your mother's body and then you had to wait for so many hours just trying to get your father out of the bushes, and then to find out that he shot himself, and now both of your parents are dead, and that's the end of both of your parents. Now both bodies were taken to the New Amsterdam mortuary to await postmortem examination. As Blair was taken away from the scene of the incident, his sisters began to wail and cry uncontrollably. I can just envision what those women were going through, thinking, oh my gosh, my brother just shot himself. We tried so hard and for so long to get him out of the bushes, to get him to surrender, to come out alive, and then to know he just shot himself and he killed his wife. That was the end of it. I would have been in so much shock and I would have been hysteric. There's a saying that goes, you don't know what people are going through. So I think it says, make it your mission to be kind always. And I think in this situation that statement holds true, because you don't know necessarily what that man might have been feeling on his mind, and you don't know what that woman also was going through. So my heart really goes out to both families, because to lose members of your family in that way because of situation like finances, I can't begin to begin to imagine what those funerals might have been like. And how life changed for those two children, even though one of them was mature, and you know, it would still have changed their lives in some way. So I don't know, that one is a bit tricky to understand. While I was studying the case, I'm thinking, wow, money is really something that is a determining factor in a marriage, and it also led me to think about how necessary it is for people to even go to counseling, even if they have been married for how many years, you know, because sometimes you might forget simple principles, and then life gets in the way. After you've been married so long, you forget certain things that you might have been taught in counseling, or you just need somebody to vent to. That is why I would always tell male friends that it's okay for a man to go and sit down with a therapist. It's not something that is not cool. It's not something that they should be ashamed of. I am an advocate for therapy because I believe that there are some things that we just can't handle by ourselves, and we would need experienced people to deal with that for us. So while studying this case, I dare to think whether or not therapy would have made a difference for this man, and whether or not just, you know, having somebody there to tell him that it would be okay. But who am I, you know? I just keep thinking all the time that probably, you know, therapy would have helped him. Probably some pastor or somebody could have reached out. And then again, you have to wonder if he wanted that kind of help, because you know, sometimes people would keep things to themselves. So you can't say, well, I can't say that probably somebody could have reached out to them, because possibly people didn't know. So that we have to factor that in as well, whether or not he would have reached out to anybody in a position like a pastor, or I read that he reached out to his friends or whatever, but there's only so much that friends can do, and then again there is only so much that therapy can do. You have to want to have the help before the help can work. So I don't know, you just don't know what people are walking around with, what kind of burdens they're walking around with in the world. So you just have to be kind to people always. And I would say in this situation, I don't know if prayer would have worked. I'm not sure. I'm lost for words. Honestly speaking, I'm lost for words in this case. And to just relive something like that through articles, through newspaper reading, and so on like that, it is one of those cases that had me thinking. I actually took a long time before I could prepare the material for this, because it was so much to go through, and then so much to put together, to piece together, to make sense of what took place at that time. Anyway guys, that is the end of yet another murder-suicide case. I hope that you would have gained some sort of insight into that case, and you found some sort of interest in it. And if you know someone who is in a situation like that, and you can help by probably talking with either party, please do that, because you never know how far away a person is from doing something that they might regret. And I'm thinking that that man probably regretted what he did. That's why he was hiding. So I don't know. And as always, I do hope that the children who would have lost their parents, that, you know, they didn't let life change them, and they will try to aspire to be better people than what they would have witnessed at that incident. Yeah, so that's basically my wish. I hope that they're doing well, and that they're healthy and loved, and that this situation didn't change them. So that's it for today's video guys. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And in today's comments, please let me know what you think about what would have happened here. I always do look forward to the interactive conversations that we have during these videos, so please ensure that you like, share and comment about today's video, and remember that liking, sharing and commenting helps my channel to grow so that I can reach a larger audience. And remember to subscribe, guys. And once you subscribe, please put on your notification bells so that as soon as I post, you will see that notification pop up on whatever device you're using, and you will be aware that I've posted another video. So until next time, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!